Some players take a while to settle in the Premier League. Sergio Aguero took about 10 minutes. City had just splashed £38 million on this stocky little Argentine striker from Atletico Madrid, and there was a bit of, is he really worth it, going around. He started on the bench against Swansea, comes on after the hour mark, and within 8 minutes, bang, he scored. Proper poacher's finish at the back post. Then, just to show off, he sets up David Silva with a ridiculous cutback from the byline. And if that wasn't enough, he smashes in a 25-yarder in stoppage time like it's nothing. 2 goals, 1 assist in just over half an hour. That night, says he, fans walked out of the Etihad thinking, this lad's going to be special. Spoiler, he was. But that debut, that was him introducing himself to England with a sledgehammer.
17 years old, first Premier League match, title race on the line. No pressure, right? Federico Macheda had barely played a minute of senior football when Sir Alex threw him on against Aston Villa, with United staring at a damaging draw. Then, in the 93rd minute, he picks up the ball just inside the box, spins his man with one touch and curls it into the far corner like he's been doing it for years. Old Trafford absolutely erupts. Commentary loses its mind. United win 3-2, and that goal becomes one of the most famous debuts in Premier League history. Everyone thought United had found the next big thing, but football's a funny game. That moment was the peak. Macheda never quite lived up to it, drifting around clubs in England then abroad. Still, for one afternoon in Manchester, he looked like a superstar.
16 years old, first Premier League game, and Wayne Rooney already looked like he belonged. Everton fans had been hearing whispers about this local lad tearing it up in the youth teams, but now he was up against seasoned pros in a real match, Spurs at Goodison Park. From the off, he wasn't shy. Strong on the ball, sharp turns, clever passes. He played like someone twice his age. You didn't score, but you could see the raw power and fearlessness that would make him a star. The crowd could feel it too. Every touch had a little buzz around it. It was the first glimpse of a player who just weeks later would smash that goal against Arsenal and announce himself to the world. But even without a goal, that debut told you everything. This kid was special, and he wasn't going to be hanging around the youth team for long.
This is the most infamous Premier League debut ever, and it barely lasted 45 minutes. Ali Dia somehow convinced Southampton that he was George Weah's cousin, had played for PSG and was worth a trial. None of it was true. Manager Graham Souness, short on players, put him on the bench against Leeds. Midway through the first half, Matt Le Tissier comes off injured and Diarm gets his big chance. What followed was chaos. His touch was heavy, his positioning all over the place, and it quickly became clear he was nowhere near Premier League standard. Souness hooked him in the second half, and Diarm disappeared from the club the very next day. No contract, no comeback, just one bizarre, glorious chapter in football history. It's not just the worst Premier League debut, it might be the most bizarre con the league's ever seen.
Most dream debuts involve scoring goals or pulling off wonder saves. De Gea's, let's just say it was more memorable than magical. He just signed from Atletico Madrid for £18 million, a British record for a goalkeeper, and was stepping into the gloves of Edwin van der Sar. No pressure. Early on, West Brom's Shane Long picks up the ball on the edge of the box, has a hit, and it squirms under De Gea's hands and into the net. Suddenly, all the questions about whether this skinny 20-year-old could handle the Premier League got a lot louder. But here's the thing, he didn't crumble. Made a couple of smarter stops after that, helped United see out a 2-1 win, and quietly went about proving himself over the years. That debut might have been shaky, but it was the start of a career that would see him become one of United's best keepers of the modern era.
There was so much hype around Haaland before his first Premier League game, it almost felt impossible for him to live up to it. Massive transfer fee, ridiculous goal record in Germany, and every defender in England wondering how on earth they were going to stop this 6'4" Norwegian robot. Opening day, away at West Ham, and within 35 minutes, he's already announced himself. Makes a perfect run in behind. Keeper takes him out, wins the penalty, tucks it away like he's been doing it all his life. No fuss, no nerves. Second half, even better. Bursts through the middle, one-on-one, cool finish into the bottom corner. 2 goals, both classic Haaland. Pace, power, precision. The scary part, he'd barely celebrated. It was like, yeah, you'll be seeing this every week. And well, we did. That debut was just the warning shot.
Patrice Evra went on to become one of the best left-backs the Premier League's ever seen, but you wouldn't have guessed it from his debut. January 2006, the Manchester derby, thrown straight in at left-back. Big stage, huge rivalry, and Evra admits himself he just wasn't ready. From the first whistle, City targeted him. Sean Wright-Phillips and Trevor Sinclair ran at him non-stop, and he looked completely lost. United were 2-0 down by half-time, and Sir Alex had seen enough. Evra didn't even make it to the second half, hooked at the break, in what he later called the worst game of his life. The thing is, that nightmare start made him work even harder. Within months, he'd nailed down the position and later went on to win 5 Premier League titles. But that first match, proof that even legends can have shockers. You know you've had a good debut when people are still talking about it nearly 30 years later. Fabrizio Ravanelli rocked up to Middlesbrough with that famous silver hair, fresh off winning the Champions League with Juventus. And you could tell he wasn't here for a quiet life in the northeast. Opening day 1996 against Liverpool, a proper test, and within minutes, bang, he's on the score sheet. Then another. Then another. A debut hat-trick in the Premier League against one of England's biggest clubs. I mean, come on, how many players can say that? The celebration was peak Ravanelli as well. A shirt over the head, arms out, the lot. Borough fans thought they'd signed a god, and for a while they cut hat. The man was pure box office. Goals, drama, controversy, the full package. But that first game, that was the moment the whole league sat up and went,
All right, this guy's the real deal.
Gervinho's Premier League debut had everything except a goal. Arsenal had just signed him from Lille after he'd torn up Ligue 1, and there was a real buzz about what he could bring. Pace, flair, chaos. Opening day at St James's Park, and he looked sharp. Direct running, tricky feet, causing problems for Newcastle's defence. Then it all kicked off. Literally. Joey Barton drags him up after a tangle, words are exchanged, and Gervinho loses it. He swings an open hand into Barton's face. Barton drops like he's been shot, and the referee's already reaching for the red card. Just like that, his debut's over. Arsenal fans had seen glimpses of what he could do, but also a flash of the inconsistency and frustration that would define his time in England. Memorable? Definitely. For the right reasons? Not so much.
Stephen Ireland's Premier League debut didn't have goals or red cards. It was all about how comfortable he looked. A 19-year-old from Cork, thrown into City's midfield away at Bolton, and you'd have thought he'd been playing there for years. He wasn't just chasing shadows or playing it safe. He was demanding the ball, spraying passes, linking play, calm under pressure, quick to spot openings. It was the kind of debut that makes fans think, we've got something here. City lost 1-0 that day, but Ireland's performance stood out. It set up a few seasons where he looked like a homegrown star in the making, and in 2009 he even won the club's Player of the Year. But consistency was always the battle, and that first game promise never quite became a long-term legacy. Still, for a first taste of Premier League football, it was pure confidence.
When Spurs signed Jurgen Klinsmann, the English press didn't exactly roll out the red carpet. He had a reputation as a diver from his time in Italy and Germany, so the tabloid were sharpening their knives before he'd even kicked a ball. Opening day away at Sheffield Wednesday, and Klinsmann just went out and flipped the script. He scored a trademark header in a wild 4-3 win, ran straight to the corner flag and threw himself into a full-on, palms-out dive along the pitch. It was perfect, poking fun at his critics, getting the fans on side instantly. That celebration became iconic, and so did his debut. In one afternoon, he went from pantomime villain to cult hero. And while his time at Spurs was short, that first match showed England exactly what they were getting: a world-class striker with a bit of cheek.
United had chased Ruud van Nistelrooy for over a year, but a serious knee injury delayed the move. By the time he finally made his Premier League debut, the hype was huge, and he delivered straight away. Opening day at Old Trafford, newly promoted Fulham gave United a scare, twice taking the lead through Louis Saha. But Van Nistelrooy showed exactly why Sir Alex had waited for him. First, he latched onto a through ball, rounded the keeper and squeezed it in from the tightest of angles. Then minutes later, he did it again. Same ice-cold composure, same ruthless finish. United ran out 3-2 winners, and it was clear. This wasn't just a striker who'd score goals, this was a striker who'd live for them. That debut was the start of a ridiculous run where he'd score in his first 8 Premier League games.